Before we dive into this week's episode, I wanted to let you know that we'll be talking about personal experiences with depression. It's a really great episode, and I promise it's not all doom and gloom, but I wanted to give you a heads up in the event that you are struggling with or are sensitive to this topic. If you're struggling with depression, please seek help from a licensed health professional. Thanks for joining us again, Awkward Peeps. I'm your hostess without a co hostess, but that's okay because producer Matt Lieberman is joining us today. And I always love when I get Matt to join me in conversations, and he often does, though it's usually after the recording stops. In fact, he's asked some pretty interesting questions after recording that I sometimes wish we would have gotten on the record, and hopefully we can get him to chime in a little bit more in the future. Mac works hard behind the scenes to edit, coordinate episode releases, and keep the podcast on track, and in general, just try to keep me from going insane too. We have some other undercover team members too that I really love to give recognition to. Jeff, our graphic designer, creates all the wonderful images that you see in each post. And I really feel like Jeff has had a sixth sense when he picked the color scheme and the images for the podcast, because every nonverbal part of what he does has been nothing short of perfect. So we also have Lexi. She's kind of our social media specialist, if you will. She taught me how to Instagram because I didn't know how to Instagram before. So she's taught me some things about Instagramming, which makes me kind of sound really old. We also have Griselda. She's just kind of our mastermind over all of the marketing. She really contributes a lot in terms of a vision and helps kind of give a different perspective and get me outside of my mind whenever we've had discussions about different episodes that are coming up. She's given some great perspectives that I would have never thought of before. So I want to shout out to her too. And then, of course, Mitch, the mastermind behind starting this podcast to begin with. He continues to just encourage us to stop doubting everything that we're doing and just keep having fun, showing everyone how much the industry has to offer. And then, of course, we have another guest that's going to be on our show today, and we'll get to her in just a second. This episode, though, marks the end of season 2 for Awkward Insurance. But don't fret, because we're not going to be gone for long. In fact, I think it's like a 1-week release hiatus. We'll be back real soon, I promise. And I think we're going to make a tradition out of just bringing Mac out of his hidey hole and kind of going through some of our favorite episodes. I would really love to get your perspective, Mac, on the episodes, the guests, or maybe just the process. This is your time to have the airing of grievances in terms of Seinfeld. Isn't that the start of Festivus, is the airing of grievances?
It is.
So if you want to make this your airing of grievances before we go into our next season, maybe we can make it all the more better. Mac and I, like I said, we're going to have another guest today too. We're welcoming Kat Ferris back to the show today. Our season 2 co-host is back. And Kat, my sweet, how are you?
I am doing fine, and I'm just so happy to be back and looking at you and Mac on the screen, and it's making me happy and also making me a little sad.
I don't know how to feel about this right now because there's a lot going on. And I said before we started that I feel like we're just back in the swing of normal business, but we're not actually. You're here strictly as a
Yeah.
guest, not as a co-host, and for good reason. So what's going on in Kat's world?
Let me just say I'm really flattered to that you asked me to be a guest. It really means a lot. The last few months I have been on medical leave, and I'll admit it's something that's a little difficult to talk about so publicly, but we've had episodes where we've talked about neurodivergences and mental health. And so I think it is important to be transparent that I've taken leave due to my mental health. So I, have been sick with major depressive disorder, and it is something that has really basically I couldn't keep going anymore. My body and my mind just stopped. I had been tired for a long time, and when a lot of people hear the term depression, the first thing that comes to mind is the emotion of sadness. And I think it's important to recognize that it's not a matter of just being sad. Because you know me, and most of I think a lot of our listeners know me. I'm not typically a sad person. I really like my life for the most part, but depression it definitely slows down your brain synaptic functioning in a lot of ways. And I've noticed a gradual decline in my mental abilities over the past year or so, but honestly, just thought it was part of getting older. And especially with COVID, the past few years, everybody's just kind of been like, yeah, it's this. And
Mhm.
granted, a lot of the world has also been dealing with depression as well. But I just kind of unfortunately got to a place where I physically could not function anymore. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase crippling depression, but that's what it's become. It was been very frustrating to feel like I can't walk almost because
So how long have you been in that state before today?
so in talking to my doctor, again, it seems like the depression, the symptoms of the depression, were for the most part a very slow burn over the past few years. Again, just things I just chalked up to aging. Oh, it's taking me longer to remember things.
Mhm.
Since the beginning of 2022, the beginning of this year, my memory really just started getting worse. And I'm thinking, do I have Alzheimer's? What's going on? And I would start losing just complete conversations that I've had. And then I noticed anytime something even remotely stressful would happen, I would just think to myself, like, oh, I don't want to be here, as in, I don't want to exist. And I didn't necessarily want to hurt myself. I didn't think of myself as being suicidal or anything. I just thought, I don't want to exist anymore. Oh my God, I just want this. I want to go to sleep forever and just shut everything down. Everything just became overwhelming until I would say in the beginning of March. Unfortunately, those thoughts then continued to a point where I started what it would, imagining ways to let that happen. And that's when I knew, whoa, I need help. Fortunately, I've already had a psychiatrist for my ADHD, and I only saw her once every 4 or 5 months just to get my ADHD meds. But when those thoughts really got to a dark place, I was very fortunate to already have a doctor and say, hey, this just happened. And, you know, I don't think I need to check myself into a hospital, but maybe I do. I don't know what's happening. And again, I'm really lucky because I already had a psychiatrist I had an established relationship with. So many people don't. And it breaks my heart to think about what could have happened if I didn't have a doctor that I was already working with. I would probably still be on hold trying to find somebody who could see me.
Yeah, that's a very real issue, to be honest with you, the availability of mental health services in general. And so I'm so thankful that you've had someone available to you already. That's the best case scenario, right? Which we can come back to in a minute as to why mental health services are needed even when you're not in the middle of crisis. It's a maintenance plan, if you will. You go to the doctor annually to have everything checked up, or you should if you don't. I kind of feel the same way about mental health as well, even if it's just somebody that you're checking in with, once every 3 months to just kind of, give them a rundown of this is what's happening, this is where my mental state is, or to seek advice or whatever. But when you don't have that established already, the availability of mental health services right now is seriously strained.
Yeah.
It's about an 8-month wait here in Austin.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we
And that's ridiculous. I'll tell you, if I had to wait 8 months to get help, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with
right,
you.
yeah. And that's what I found here too. We have a family member that's struggling with depression, and trying to find services for that family member. It's like I called a therapist that we're already involved with, but because it's a new patient, it'll be a 9 to 12 month wait. Excuse me? Like,
Oh,
how is
Mhm.
why? Like,
Yeah.
can you put me on a list for the next available appointment? So I'm really thankful that you've had somebody available to help you with that, which brought me to my next question of, you know, all the time that you spent in that space, how are you today?
So I'm doing better. In depression, there are three phases of the recovery. So there's the acute phase of depression recovery, which is what's like I'm seeing doctors multiple times a week. Fortunately, I didn't have to check into any facility because I assure them like I don't think I'm gonna like I really don't want to hurt myself, but these thoughts are happening. So I did get to stay at home and just visit the doctor multiple times a week, working with both a psychiatrist for my medication and a psychologist for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is designed to try to reprocess some of the thought patterns in my head. So, in the acute phase, I'll tell you, if I'm not going to the doctor, it's a lot of sleeping. Every day I had to give myself badges for doing the most simple things like, hey, I got up and brushed my teeth today. That's a gold star. Or I was able to unload the dishwasher. That's a gold star. Every task, every mental function was just so hard. And so the second phase of recovery is what's called the continuation phase. And from everything that I'm told, this could still last another 6 to 8 months. The continuation phase is like, okay, you've got the medication right, you're in a good place. I only have to see the doctor once a month now. So that's good. But in a lot of ways, I have to train myself how to walk again, so to speak.
Mhm.
It's retraining myself just to have daily routines because and again everything is just physically hard. So I've had some days recently where I felt neutral, and neutral's good. Like, I was like, I'm so happy to have a neutral day. I feel like a normal person, not someone who is paralyzed by this invisible illness. So I'm happy to be in this place now, and it's I my mental capacity is still not at 100%, but I'm able to start strategizing and planning at a high level. Okay, what do I want things to look like 6 months from now? It is really hard though when you've been such a high achiever for a long time, or you've when you're someone who's always wanted to be successful and do well. It's been really hard to not work.
Mm.
And then there's this part of my brain that tells me, well, I'm not working. I should do more stuff around the house, or I should take this time to do. But I literally can't. My nervous system has no fuel.
Let's talk about that for a minute. The decision that you made, that's a huge decision to make. You not only like took leave, that's one decision to make,
Mhm.
but tell us about the ultimate decision that you made.
So getting the medical leave, you can do that up to 12 weeks. And I just kept having this anxiety as, oh my gosh, am I going to be okay to go back at the end of the 12 weeks? Am I going to be capable of doing that job? And that just continued to add to this anxiety. And then I really had to do a lot of kind of soul searching, again with a therapist, and think about, okay, well, what about my career and my job do I love? What things do I want to continue doing? And doing this podcast has been a big part of that, and having meaningful conversations with people. And Dustin, I love some of the episodes that we've had this season, and having real conversations, and talking to people about some of their struggles and their mental health. And I've decided that I want to be more within a health and wellness space. I need to be in a place that allows me to also pay attention to what's going on with my own body and my own nervous system. Because I think for so many years, I've just ignored it. And Dustin, we've talked about this too. We live in a hustle and grind culture. And especially working with insurance agents and producers, this industry really does glorify, again, let's work and get it done. And that's great for a lot of people, but I can't it's not for me.
I think we see, I think right next to when you took your medical leave, there were a few things that were kind of evolving at the same time. We were just off of that One City World Tour conference. We had had some discussions about conferencing and what we would like to see as women in the industry in terms of conferencing and representation, if you will. We were having, I think we had an episode with Sarah Muniz, which in that episode I pronounced her last name wrong.
I think we all did.
Which we could talk about that episode too, but that was one of the episodes that we had right around the time that you took leave as well. It's a struggle. And you're right. This industry in particular, and I don't think it's just our industry. I honestly think it's the business industry in general. Whether it's banking business, financial services, it's entrepreneurship. There's this around that time, there were several posts, honestly, through social media of the hashtag hustle and how to do that, or hashtag the grind or whatever. And they weren't always healthy portrayals of a work-life balance. And I don't want to say work-life balance, to be honest, because I feel like that's overused so much, because work is part of our lives and our lives are also part of our work. But yeah, it does become a struggle, and it's kind of a plague.
It is. And, and again, I mean, the insurance industry has been great to me for 22 years.
Yeah.
It really has been. And it's still an industry that I would encourage a lot of people to consider, and to do so intentionally. There are some people out there that
with boundaries, though,
with
folks,
boundaries,
with boundaries with everything, with boundaries in marriage, with boundaries with kids, with boundaries with family, and boundaries with work. You can be a hustler and really get a grind and be truly amazing and successful without neglecting parts of yourself that are going to put you in a mental health crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think, over the past year or so, again, the business industries all over, you hear a lot and talk a lot about just burnout. And I thought, for a while that maybe this is just burnout.
I'm gonna Google it really quick while you're talking. I'm pretty sure that burnout was just added to the DSM.
Really?
I think so. Keep talking.
Right, yeah.
I'm gonna Google it.
But I mean, but burnout too is also something that's so easy to dismiss and be like, okay, you just need a vacation. When was the last time you've had a vacation? And so I did all that. I was like, okay, let me take a vacation. Let me do this. I just kept thinking, this is just burnout. This is just burnout. I need a break. And again, once my thoughts started going to a darker place, and even when I made the decision to no longer work, it's not like, okay, everything's better. Let me quit my job and then I'll be cured. I mean, that's not it at all. I'm still not in a place where I can work in the capacity in which I want to. And again, consider this a public service announcement or whatever, but especially because it's so hard to find a mental health practitioner. If you're feeling even a little bit of burnout, please, please, please try to find somebody now. There have been days where I didn't
with the expectation of 8 to 12 months.
Exactly. Yeah. There were days where I did not trust myself to get in the car and drive. So it's just take that burnout a lot more seriously, please.
Okay, so burnout is not in the Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Health Disorders, otherwise known as the DSM-5, but it has been established as a legitimate justification for sick leave in some countries, not the United States, because the United States is behind on mental health. But yeah, that's there. I think there's been a lot of awareness around burnout, and I'm so happy. I want to kind of move past a little bit, get to the fun part of this. Not that I want to push past mental health or anything else, but I'm so thankful that you were able to recognize that in yourself. I am incredibly in awe of the decision that you made, because I know for sure, just the way my brain works, if I were faced with such a decision, I would struggle with it, because everything I know in terms of responsibilities and what makes a successful adult and what's kind of indoctrinated in us as children, from your parents to school to college, what makes a successful working adult is working.
Yes.
Hmm.
So being able to recognize something in yourself, and so thankful that you had a mental health professional there to help you with that as well, that you were able to come to the conclusion you just needed to change course completely, like
Hmm.
throw up the sails and find a new win kind
Yeah.
of thing.
But and even though I am changing course, it still takes time. Like I'm still in my recovery. And there are some classes that I'll be taking, but I won't be starting until the fall because I still need time to build up those neurons in my brain again.
Build those beautiful neurons.
It's really great to see where you're at now and your hopeful sort of practical approach to it. And you deserve all the credit for being able to realize and admit that it wasn't just burnout.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
This really works with the other podcasts we've done too, because I think it gets people thinking about uncomfortable things in a new and hopefully a better way. Like the long term care episode we did was one of my favorites because it reframed and brought a little attention to kind of a difficult
No,
topic.
I truly loved that episode as well, and yeah, I think it was really valuable, to be honest with you. I had received some messages, some personal messages afterwards from friends and family that said that it's a conversation that they knew they needed to have but haven't had, and it brought it back to the forefront of their mind. I think everybody knows they need to have a conversation about the what ifs in
Mhm.
terms of your care and the scary parts of who's going to take care of you and whatnot. On the flip side to that one too, though, I think that was one of our first episodes that we put a disclaimer on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the first one.
Yeah, well, it was one of our first trigger warnings or content warning episodes, and we got some super positive feedback on that as well, because you just never know where somebody is.
I'm betting we might have to put a disclaimer on this one too, because
Of course,
yeah,
we can do that as
yeah,
well. But I mean, that was a learning process too. In terms of the topics that we get into in insurance, you just never know where somebody is um,
Hmm.
in their life or in that stage at that moment. So I really enjoyed, and I kind of enjoyed Kelly anyway. She's so much fun and so sweet. So I mean, that's kind of where insurance really, I want to say, meets the road, meets our hearts, meets our interests, our personal dedication to what we do, which I think is why it's, to kind of tie everything back. That's why it's so easy to achieve burnout, because we put our entire selves into what we do in the insurance industry. And I'll say, just from the personal line standpoint, I don't have a ton of experience in commercial lines, so I can't attest to, how personal those connections get. But with personal lines insurance, what I loved about it was that it brought in some of the aspects of being in the hospital. When I worked in the hospital, I got to sit down with people and have random conversations about them and their family and kids and whatever. And that's what personal lines insurance did for me. I poured everything I had into it. So burnout, I can tell burnout's very easy to achieve.
mhm.
So yeah, thanks for that tie into an episode, Matt. Any other episodes you particularly enjoyed? I know I loved our Meg McKean episode
I was gonna
because
say
I'm just a Meg McKean fangirl.
Yeah, I
that.
think we all are after that episode.
Yeah, and again, not to put blame on anybody, but depending on how you want to look at it, I look at it as thank you for this inspiration. Having Meg share her story as well is something that really resonated with me, and also just made me ask myself what is important to my life and what's important to me. So it's just such an inspiring individual. And I think regardless of whether or not somebody is in insurance or in a different industry, I think that there's a lot of good takeaway and good value they could get from listening to that discussion.
What
Hmm.
episodes did you connect to? I mean, there's so many to pick from. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember one of the episodes that just comes to my mind just as far as having the fun discussions about it and all your puns, Dustin.
I know which one you're going for
Did you
already.
catch the cannabis webinar that I did? Please tell me you did. I
I
know you were
caught
on
parts of
leave.
it. Yeah, yeah, but I was so proud of you. No, that was just fun, and it was a fun discussion. And I think also for me having that commercial background, I was so excited to have a commercial person to talk to, and I think Kieran was great, and he also gave a lot of really good information for those agents out there that think at the very least there's something actionable that they can do. There's a resource for them right at the end of that call.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree that that was a fun episode as well. And that's kind of just, I was kind of out of my depth on that one again because I don't have a commercial lines focus. So it was you and him
But
and
you,
whatever.
all
But
that wordplay, that was all you, my friend. I even had, so
you,
my husband being an English teacher, he's like, those are some pretty good. I'm like, I can't take credit. That was all Dustin.
you should have been here for the development of the cannabis webinar. Oh my God. I was dropping puns in all the teams' chats.
You know what other one I really liked? I really loved the cease and desist guys, the glove box guys.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yes,
that was
I
fun.
loved that episode. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had fun with them. What did we get out of that one? Flipping? No.
Oh, the
slugging.
Slugging.
Yes.
Slugging.
Which, I mean, doesn't my skin look pretty good? I'm just gonna say.
Are you still slugging?
Oh, like once every week or so. I have to remember to do it like before I wash my hair. I only wash my hair like twice a week. So I have to remember to do it when I know I'm gonna wash my hair the next day. Because otherwise,
Right, because it gets in your hair.
well, honestly, now that I'm
be
not really
honest, have
working
you
or
tried slugging?
Not yet, but it is on my to-do list.
yes.
I have to see your glowy complexion the day after. So make sure you put me down for a meeting that day.
Okay, can do.
Now, what else did we get out of that one? We got something about dainty wrists too.
Yes, because I used the micro needler.
Micro needling,
on
that's
my
right.
wrist.
Micro needling our wrists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
vain.
that was definitely
if
fun.
people have not discovered this by me yet, I'm relatively vain. I'm not the vainest, but you know, I slug my face and I micro needle my
I
scars.
would have never. Matt, do you have any scars?
No, I micro-needed them all.
Good response. I would have never thought to micro needle a scar, to be honest with you, because I have absolutely no self-care regimen other than taking a shower on a nightly basis and going to sleep. That's it. No, that was definitely a great and fun episode as well. The glove box guys, they're priceless. Can I say adorable? They're adorable together.
You can say
the
adorable.
The two brothers Matheson. No, they were definitely fun, and I truly enjoyed getting to know them both at their One City World Tour conference and on the podcast as well. And hopefully, we'll be able to see them around again. What else do we have for season 2? To be honest with you, Kat, when I found out that you weren't going to be returning, not just to the podcast, because I thought maybe you might come back to us in the National Alliance, but maybe take a break podcast, because honestly, if I'm being real, the podcast is a lot. It's
been my favorite part. I love the podcast.
Absolutely. It's absolutely fun. And this for me, I am an introverted extrovert. I do not generally talk to people easily until I know them or somebody else has introduced me to them first. I'm not usually the first to introduce myself. So this podcast for me has honestly broken that mold for me and gotten me to have conversations with people I would have never had conversations with before. I would have just stayed in the background. And I think that's everything that I want out of the podcast, to be honest, is to have guests on here that would have never had the conversations otherwise, that there are perspectives that they have that people like me, the introverted extroverts, need to hear.
But you're so good at it. And that's something that, like, I have to say, I've just been in awe of you. I'm going to fangirl for a moment. I fangirl over Dustin.
Don't do that. Let's not do that.
But I mean, I think, and you've, especially, in the beginning of my leave, I appreciate just how sensitive you've been and supportive you've been. But there's also been you don't need me. That and because
that's not true.
Well, I mean,
I need you and I need Matt.
Well, we all need a Matt in our lives.
In fact, there was a particular episode which we shall not name, but and it turned out beautifully. Oh my God, it was so amazing. There was a particular episode that was such a struggle bus. I bought Mac a tumbler because I did not want him hating me for the rest of forever and promised him that I would never make that mistake again. And my reparations for that was it a Mando tumbler? Is that
It was
what we settled on, or what you
it was a Mando tumbler. It was completely unnecessary, but it's my new favorite cup. So
you say it was unnecessary. Trust me, when you think back on your career 10 years from now, you're going to realize that tumbler, it should have been bigger. And that episode, to be honest with you, I wish I could name it, but I don't want to. That episode was freaking awesome. And that particular, I was so wrapped up in my head after that episode that I felt like I was never going to be able to interact with that guest again. And I, after that episode, was like, oh my God, I would like to have that person over for dinner.
Nice.
The editing genius of Mac just shone through in that. And nobody's going to recognize it except for you and me, because we're the only ones who know. And when you listen to it, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but you should listen to it if you haven't listened to it. And I'm going to say, listen to it one more time.
Now you're making so much of a mystery. Everybody's going to start trying to figure out which episode.
They're going to go back and listen to every single episode. That's my point. No, okay. Yes, please go back to the beginning and listen to every episode. No, it was amazing, Mac. You were amazing, and you proved yourself so big time.
Well, thank you.
All right, I'll get off the Mac soapbox now.
She was just pivoting so that I would stop fangirling over her.
Exactly, because I get uncomfortable in the fangirling and I try to turn the attention on somebody else. Go back to Kat. Now, I've truly had so much fun on season 2. I am so thankful that we had the opportunity to bring you into the show and just lean into you. You made season 2 so much more comfortable and so much more fun, and the perspectives that you brought new life perspectives to me even. And that's everything that I want to happen when I have conversations with anybody, is just to be able to have a different perspective that I didn't have before.
I think today has been kind of a perfect way of illustrating and punctuating your time on the show. You've always been so much fun and open and warm, and it's just added so much to this season's episodes.
Thank you. If you'll forgive me, it's getting a little dusty in here, or somebody is cutting onions. I'm a little verklempt, so
I was going to ask if you're
I'll just say
crying
thank
because
you.
we're trying to make you cry.
Yeah, no, I am. And at least this time, it's not necessarily a sad depression cry. It's more of a, oh, kind of touched and speechless. No, thank you. I really do miss you guys. And I as I had said, I think I said before the call, before we started recording, I'm retired from the insurance industry. Again, I've loved the industry. I have no plans to work in an agency or work for another company. And
isn't that weird to say at such a young age that you retired from an industry? That just sounded really weird to me, Kat.
I know. But it's so as part of that retirement and just trying to move on, I started unfollowing a lot of insurance related pages, and I unsubscribed to all the insurance podcasts that I've listened to, except for Awkward Insurance.
Thank you.
Oh.
So yes, because I miss you guys.
We miss you too so much. So you unfollow or you unfriend?
Unfollow. So I unfollowed the insurance related pages, and then I was following lots of industry organization pages and things like that, and my Facebook feed.
Do you feel like there's a hole in your news feed? Or is Facebook like, no, we're going to keep sending you insurance?
Trust me, Facebook finds other ways to market to you. So, yeah. And honestly, part of my recovery too has been not using social media mindlessly. And I would say for like the first month that I was on leave, I hardly used anything, just because, again, the mental energy that it took from me, I was like, I can't do it. So no TV, no news, no social media. I was just trying to detox from everything. But now I'm back to social media, not to insurance.
Well, I'm so happy that we had a chance to get you back on the show and just kind of figure out what's been going on with Kat. Thank you both so much for joining me on this episode. Like I said when I started, I completely enjoy when I'm able to get Mac on an episode, just because I enjoy his friendship behind the scenes. I enjoy just everything that he brings to the episodes that you guys don't get to see. So I'm so excited that I was able to get him back today, and I am going to make sure that this happens at the end of every season.
Fair enough.
And I'm thank you very much. And I'm absolutely thrilled that you were able to join us again, Kat, and I was able to see you again. And I think I started hinting at it at the beginning that it felt like we were getting back on to do business as usual again. But I'm at the same time I'm saddened knowing that it's not.
This has been a great chapter. Yeah, this has been a great chapter, and thank you. And I do miss you guys. And but yeah, there will be interesting things to come. So
A great chapter, a great season.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Can I say it one last time?
Yes.
Toodles.
Toodles, everybody. Thanks for hanging around and listening to another awkward conversation in insurance. Stay tuned for new episodes from Awkward Insurance wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to check out the National Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles!